What I would like to present to you on today is leadership. I'm very fortunate to have resources around me and people in my life that are able to build like a mosaic understanding of what leadership is. I think leadership is one of these tricky things where it's almost a really fluffy word that we kind of nod in agreement and think that we understand it, but when push comes to shove, I don't think we really dive deep and question what leadership is. Furthermore, there's a common exercise that we would do in college and various team environments where you ask the question, is leadership a trait that you are born with, or is it something that can be developed? And depending on your perspective, you may have some different insights here, but stereotypically speaking, some ideas come to mind often that leaders are, if we were to stereotype, generally charismatic, powerful, assertive. If we want to take it a step further, male, tall, um, individuals in appointed power positions, etc. And while there are a number of examples of leaders or quote unquote leaders that look like this, we need to understand the mechanism of what leadership is in order to really answer this question and then subsequently build it. The first reading assignment that the program has, as you know by now, is this work from Carol Dweck, who is leading the charge in academia in terms of your frame of mind for learning and understanding feedback. She's calling it the growth mindset, and it competes, or its opposite is the fixed mindset. Now, what we know about leadership is that it can be developed. It's actually not a caricature. It's not assigned. It's not about what's on your business card. There are too many examples of leaders who don't fit the mold, who aren't even in leadership positions that can affect change. And so leadership is essentially a being a catalyst for progress. I would say great leadership is a catalyst for progress that exceeds the progress that would happen without that leader being there. It would exceed it in performance and or in an expedited fashion. You can progress faster than without the leadership, for example. Um, After we talk about leadership, we're going to get into high performance teams and how this all mix in. Um, Performance, in order to understand leadership, I think, in my opinion, we should talk about performance. And performance, regardless of the task or style of performance, I would like to simplify for you. In fact, this is a drill an exercise that I've done countless times in my life. I've spoke to groups of people and asked them to do this. Sometimes I'll pick a serious topic, other times maybe just for fun we'll pick a silly topic. And if you have a pen and paper, I would encourage you to work through this drill with me. Essentially, you're going to make two columns on this paper, and on the left, I want you to write things in my control. That will be a list. Things in my control, and then we have a list. And then you can just put a line down the middle of your page, and on the other side is another list, and these are things I cannot control. Now, I don't care what the task is. For example, I just did this exercise here on a little pen and paper on a legal pad, and I went old school. It was a drill that I had done back in college with our team sports psychologist, and it's a drill that you can do with any task. So in my example, the task is how to have a successful at bat. I was a baseball player. So I'm up to bat. How do I have a successful at bat? And there's two columns. A list of the things I can control and the list of things I cannot control. So I want you to pick any task and you're going to put that at the top of the paper. If you can't think of anything, the last time I had a group do this, we did a funny one, and it was the task at hand was to solidify a reservation for two at the fanciest restaurant in town, a Michelin star restaurant that is very exclusive, often packed, and they had to make two lists, things they can control and things they cannot control, in pursuit of this reservation for next Thursday. Now, this might seem silly, but at the end of this, you will understand why this is so powerful. It, in and of itself, will define how high performance teams and individuals operate. So, in my example, the list of things I can control is quite short. You might find the same to be true in your example. That's usually how it goes. And then the list of things outside of my control is usually a bit longer. I did an abbreviated version of this, but you can spend hours and hours and hours listing all of the things that are not in your control. So when it comes to my at-bat, trying to figure out how to best manage my ability to have success, and the things that are in my control are my training. So inside of this will include physical training, batting practice, batting drills, mobility, the health of my body. We're going to wrap that up and call it my training. The next thing on the list is my mind. Now, if my mind is spending any time concerned or worried or occupied with the past, for example, maybe the last 3 at-bats I struck out, or the last month I've had a horrible month, any time spent in the past is spending time in technically the opposite column, because I cannot control the past. The same is true of the future. If I'm worried at all about what's going to happen 2 pitches from now, then I am not in the present moment. And so I can choose to operate in the present moment. That mindset is in my control. I can also control my plan. So before I step into the batter's box, I can assess the situation on the field. What is my job in this instant? Is success getting a hit? Is success moving a runner over? Is success laying down a bunt? I will have to decide this plan before I step into the box. And so having a plan is in my control. The next thing I can manage that's in my control is what pitch I swing at. So I can stand up there and choose to swing at no pitches. I can swing at all of them. I can swing at some of them based on my own criteria. I get to choose what pitch I swing at. Now, let's go to the other list. Things I cannot control. There's almost an unlimited amount of external forces that are not in my control that will directly affect my success at the plate. For example, I cannot have any control over what pitch comes my way. The pitcher could throw a fastball, a slider, a changeup, a breaking ball. Not in my hands. The next thing is the speed of the pitch. It might be 99, it might be 81, it might be 96, it might be 91.5 miles an hour. That is out of my control. Also, the location of that pitch. Is it inside? Does it hit me in the head? Is it in the dirt? I don't know. That is something that is not in my hands. Also, I cannot control the umpire's call, his judgment. Is that a ball? Is it a strike? Those things are fully out of my control, and if you've ever had a bad call against you, you know how humbling it is to ingest someone else's bad call, right? To wear the alleged error of someone else, like an umpire's opinion. I can't control the weather. I can't control where the defenders are. I can't control anything about the defenders. Where they're positioned on the field, how fast they are, whether they make a diving catch or not. This is all out of my control. Ultimately, and this is key, at the very bottom of the list, whether I get a hit or not is out of my control. I cannot physically, as a professional hitter, control whether or not I get a hit. And as you are thinking about your example, whatever it is, I want to give you some Cliff's notes here. You can summarize all of the things in the column of things that you can control as the process. I'm giving you the shortcut. This will be true of every example you ever do. The things in your control are the process. It usually looks like, depending on what example you're doing, it looks like your preparation, your effort, and your attitude. There's different ways you can describe that, whether you're getting a reservation at a restaurant or you're trying to get a hit in baseball. Preparation, effort, attitude, that's the process. And you can have two hands on that thing and be fully in charge of the process. Now, your other list, the list of things that you cannot control, newsflash. That's the result. I don't care how good you are. I don't care what business you're in, whether you're a stock trader or a point guard or a secretary, you cannot fully control the results. And this is the big catch-22 of performance. And it's a gut check every time you think about it. It's a gut check every time I think about it. But at some point, high performance teams and individuals understand the truth that I just described to you, because we live in a world that is filled with uncertainty, and there are some number of external factors that I cannot control. You, if you're smart, can realize very quickly that the highest performing expression of any task is dumping all resources, effort, and attention into the process. Every minute or calorie spent thinking or worried about anything in the list over there of things that are not in your control is leaking performance. Even if it's justified, right? Umpires, strike 3, you're out. And it's a horrible call. Any amount of effort and distracted attention that goes towards that is instantly making me a worse fielder, a worse teammate, a worse hitter for my next at bat, etc. And so while it's humbling, high performance teams operate inside of the process. They are obsessed with managing that list of things that they can control. A great way that I often encourage individuals and businesses to think about their commitment to the process is sort of a backwards, reverse engineered way of looking at this, which is: do not accept in victory that which you would not accept in defeat. I'll say it again and then I'll explain. Do not accept in victory that which you cannot accept or would not accept in defeat. I'll give you an example. Let's make it a coaching example. So let's just say that you go out late on a Thursday night and you're coaching the 6:30 a.m. class on Friday. Now, if we're going to look at that 6:30 a.m. coaching effort through a high performance lens, we have very few things that are in your control. What's your plan? Are you prepared? What's your attitude? Are you in the moment? Etc., etc. The things that are out of your control include who shows up, maybe what the workout is, depending on how the program is run. the types of movers in the room, what types of faults you're going to see. There's plenty of things that are outside of your control. Well, let's just say you go out real late and you're partying the night before on a Thursday. You get to bed late. You wake up hungover. You don't feel good. And you roll into the gym relatively unprepared. And you're going to kind of gamble. You're hoping that things are going to just work out for you. And you set up the gym and you open it up, and slowly the students start coming in, and just by a miracle, act of God, you survive the class, and your off-the-cuff plan sort of works, and not only do you survive the class, but it's actually a great class. The people in the room have a quality experience. A couple people learned some things. Everybody had a great workout and stayed safe. None of the bad movers showed up. You got lucky. It was a great class. Boom. Now, a low performance individual would look at that and say, nailed it, because the result was successful. Now, a high performance individual would look at that and say, despite the success, if that went horribly, which it could have, I would not have accepted my lack of preparation, effort, and attitude. I was fully unprepared, and it was actually fully just luck that went well. And so back to the process I go. I have to get better and dial in a coaching plan, a class plan, and up my game such that I am prepared. Okay, so it's removing the result from the process. And while it's difficult to do, I think you can put that sort of rubric on all of your performances. The highest performing individuals will not accept in victory that which they would not accept in defeat. So your poor preparation should not bother you only on days that the class goes poorly and you teach the class over time limit by 7 minutes, and you don't have good scaling options, etc., etc. So, leadership moves the needle from current self to best self, right? Current self to best self. There's always some space because of the world we live in, because of the things I just talked to you about. There are some things that are in our control and some things that are not in our control. Everyone is operating someplace below their best self. If this is your best self, and here's where you are now, leadership helps move us closer to that pinnacle. Now, you never get there. That's fine. But leadership is a commitment to process. It is constantly evolving and spiraling forward. In our context of fitness, oftentimes that looks like, the obvious, training. People are getting fitter, stronger, some intangibles, their bodies are changing, they're mentally becoming more empowered. But what we're going to get into later in the course is a perspective that's being sort of reinforced from my personal bias on leadership and organizational culture, which comes from this Harvard, Stanford camp of deliberately developmental organizations. There's plenty of reading material that I can share with you guys about this topic. But it looks like leaders, real leaders, and high performance organizations are committed to just the success of the business, but the development of the individuals. And so I have a thorough duty and commitment to develop myself. And I don't mean front squat PRs. I mean, I need to be a different, more complex, more able, more encompassing individual next year than I am this year. And the same is true for the people that I work with. Leadership does not play defense. It does not sit at some sort of finish line and call everyone else over to the finish line. Leaders rather commit to the process of holding the standard, which is constantly coming back to the process, doing it better, evaluating, reaching for performance, and then coming back to the process over and over again.